me know when you're ready. Thank you. You can go. Good morning. It is 8 a.m. on Tuesday, July 11th, 2023. We will call the Economic Development Authority meeting of the City of New Ulm to order this morning. Item number 1 is a roll call. We do have a quorum present. Moving on to item number 2.1, approval of minutes, EDA June 13th, 2023 minutes.
I'll offer a motion to approve those.
A second.
We do have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? Those in favor signal by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion does carry. Item number 3.1, administrative activities report for June of 2023. I think we are going to, if we can pull it up and take a look. Heather just needed to step out for a moment.
Commissioners, I would just note, under the Home Buyer Assistance Loan Program, we did have 3 loans close and we have 3 applications received. So while we have about $23,000 left available for funding, that is most likely going to be expended on the 3 applications that were received. Our Get It Ready Loan Program, which is our single-family rehab, we still haven't received an application for that yet. I anticipate potentially one coming through the pipeline, but we'll see if they'll apply. And then our multifamily rehab program, we have $50,000 as of June 30th, and I don't recall if there's an application in for that or not.
Thank you, Mr. Dalton.
Nicole, this might be a question for you or Heather, that's not here. On page 13, my screen is really blurry, so I can't quite read the numbers. But when I was reading at home, I noticed that there were one loan that we had that there's no payment at all been made in like 2 years.
No. Which loan?
To Get It Ready. So that was a loan where I think the person defaulted on their home.
Say that again?
They defaulted on their home.
So what do we do with that loan?
So that one is just an uncollectible loan at this point.
So at some point, we'll have to vote to remove that, I suppose, right?
I mean, it's a loan that we just put out, and it's been there, so it's just going to be in the records as a loan that we put out.
Then there was
and aren't gonna
another one
collect
that
on it.
looked like only one payment had been made, and
They sold their house and paid it off.
okay. So what does that mean for our loan?
That means we received all the funds. They paid off their loan. Because when they sell their home, they have to repay the entire loan.
Okay, all right. Because that one made me a little nervous. I was like, a couple of years.
Schultz, the loan that defaulted, we still have a mortgage on that home, so if it sells, we'll get paid back at the time of sale. So
Leave it on the
we
books.
need to leave it on.
Okay. That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you. If nothing else, I'll look for a motion to approve item 3.1.
I move to accept the Economic Development Authority administrative activities for the month of June 2023.
That
Thank you. A motion and a second. Any additional discussion? Those in favor signal by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion does carry. Item number 4.1, EDA, July 11th, 2023 claims list.
Our normal question, anything out of the ordinary?
I'll just note under the City of New Ulm expenses, they were a little higher than normal. We paid our third quarter property insurance. And then we had a repair on the heat pump at Broadway House, so that was about $4,000. And we also had an elevator repair that was about $4,000. And then some capital fund expenses came through.
I'll offer a motion to approve the July claims list.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any additional discussion? Those in favor signal by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 5.1, Westridge Place lease agreement.
All right. As you're aware, we reviewed the first draft of the lease agreement last month and tabled it. made some changes, worked with the city attorney and our insurance provider, and we're bringing back the revised draft for your review today. We have the city attorney present virtually if you have questions for him, as well as our insurance provider is here if you have questions on that section of the lease.
Can you walk us through some of the main discussion items we had from last month?
I know there were some changes to the insurance, and then we also made some changes as far as who's responsible for repairs.
Oh, yeah.
I think those were and then there were some sections we just completely removed that we didn't think were necessary. I didn't bring the redlined copy with me today.
Heather,
Yes.
did I understand that right as I read it, that that the EDA now will be picking up all of the...
Can you put your mic a little closer?
a little closer. Closer yet, okay. I get nailed on this every time. The utilities. Are we
Yes.
picking up all the utilities now?
Yes.
But we didn't change the rent.
No, the utilities should have been included in the first draft. That was an error.
Oh.
So we corrected that. It was always our intent to pay the utilities. There's only one meter on the building, and so we could have put meters on each space, but that would have been an added cost to us. I did get from the utilities the last 2 years of what the utility expenses were when it was operating as a business, and kind of averaged out. And I estimated that the average utilities were about $600 a month. So we figure if we're collecting $1,000 a month, we have enough to cover the utilities and have money for repairs and other things.
Okay.
So
Just wanted to be clear that.
we're setting the rents
Because it
at a
was a
rate that will
change
cover.
from the last one.
correct.
I had 3 questions on the
Yes.
revised. The first is in section 4A. So maybe
4E.
4E, and maybe the attorney can help with this. Right now, it looks like I did not see anywhere in the document, like if the AC went out, that they would still be, according to this, have to pay for it. I'm totally on board with if they cause damage, they need to pay to replace whatever they damaged. But if something like the AC goes out, I did not see anything within the agreement that said that they would not be under 4E, 4E, responsible for that.
Mr. Scott, any thoughts on that? I don't know if he can hear us.
Robert, can you hear us? No, I don't think he can.
Wave at him. Oh, he's
Yeah, we
Is he
can't hear
muted?
you. I think he can hear us, but we can't hear him.
Stephen, do you need me to unmute him? Okay.
Mute participant. Mr. Scott, we're coming to try to fix some of the technical difficulties we're having. In the meantime, Michelle, is there something else we can?
We can perhaps skip to section 15, insurance. And this might be an attorney question as well, but is there anything within there that allows people not to have to get certain types of insurance? It still requires directors and officers liability, and if I read the law correctly, which I'm not an attorney, in LLC you do not need a director or officers, and so then you wouldn't need directors and officers insurance?
So Actually, if you look down one of the exhibits, we actually do have a waiver for three of those activities. It's water activity liability, dog and cat liability, and director and officers liability. So if they want
Perfect.
to waive any of those, they would complete this form as well.
Perfect.
And that was one way to help lower that cost. 'Cause correct me if I'm wrong, Tom. Water activities was one of the more expensive items under the liabilities, correct?
Tom Firth Miley Insurance. Water activities is expensive. Obviously, the losses aren't going to be minor. And so some of the companies offer a sublimit of like 150,000, and then the preferable limit is right up to the policy limits. And if memory serves, it could be $750 a year just for that coverage alone. And so the addendum was created by Mr. Scott and Mr. Dalton, Heather and I, and it was an opportunity for the daycare provider to promise in writing that there would be no such water activities, quick walk to the park on a hot day, which isn't very feasible from their location anyway. Maybe they can make it to the splash pad in North Park, which wouldn't be considered a water activity. But let's throw a kiddie pool out in the lawn today. That's a water activity. And so the addendum, like Mr. Dalton said, was to allow them to agree not to do those things. Dog and cat bite liability, that is what it is. You have a daycare provider that all of a sudden one day says, I got a new puppy today, and I think the kids would really enjoy seeing the new puppy. Now you got a problem, I shouldn't say a problem, a potential problem, and so that's one of the things. And then, like you said, with the directors and officers liability, short of there being a board of directors, which there are for some of the larger daycares, you'd have no need. And while we're on the subject, one of the other items that we talked about via email recently was the work comp. It says in here, work comp as applicable by law, and sole proprietors are probably not legally bound to have work comp insurance. But what's happened a lot is, especially in the contractor industry, sole proprietors, like a gutter hanging company, for instance, might come out and say, well, I'm a sole proprietor, I have no employees, therefore I need no work comp insurance. And then you drive by and there's somebody holding the other end of the gutter. And it's like, okay, how is that person being compensated? And the problem is that when that other guy falls off the ladder and gets hurt, short of a work comp policy in force, that could come back on the property owner. Or in the case of the contracting industry, it could bump up to the general. So you got a general that hires the gutter hanger, the employee of the gutter hanger falls, there's no work comp in place, now it's the general's problem. As we all know, everything just keeps getting kicked up the ladder. Now, the work comp insurance, like we discussed, and again, this will be a question that you have to answer, because someone will say, I don't have employees, I don't need work comp. They can issue a work comp policy with if any as the exposure. So normally you'd put the payroll in there. Well, I got no payroll. Okay, so put if any in there. And the company might charge you $1,000 for the policy that you can then put on your certificate and prove to the city of New Ulm that you have work comp insurance that will protect you should you have an employee that you flip $50 one day to come in and help, or whatever it might be. At the end of the year, the work comp policy will be audited, and if you send back your audit and it says you had no payroll, you will get the majority of that premium back, all but maybe $200. They have what's called an expense constant. And I have several sole proprietors that end up having to do this because they work for generals all the time, and the generals won't let them on the site without having a work comp policy. Even though the work comp policy is not intended to cover the sole proprietor, it's there in case there's some employee hanging around that the general doesn't know about. So I thought while I'm up here, I would explain that concept because your providers will be asking you, why do we have to have work comp?
I know last month there was discussion about reducing the potential rent per month due to the insurance cost of the providers. Where did that discussion go? Because I see we still have the normal amount on here.
Yeah, I really don't like the idea of reducing the rent because we're asking them to sign a 2-year lease. If we reduce the rent to, $1 a month and they decide to pull out early, they can say, here's $12, I'm out. I want them to have some skin in the game and some ownership in their space.
Yep.
That's why I'm hesitant to lower the rent. Now, we had done financial feasibility studies with First Children's Finance, and we had put in the numbers that Tom gave us, and they're, he's estimating on the high side. We don't know what their premium is going to be, but that's kind of worst case scenario. It could be lower, but even using the 2,400, the businesses are still financially feasible. If they're able to get their premium down, working with their agent, and maybe doing some of those waivers and taking some of those costs out, their cost could be lower.
I suppose we always have the option of a rebate or something like that at the end of the year, or halfway through, or
Yeah, I think, we can always revisit it.
they'd probably want to know that, though. I mean, I probably would.
Well, I think before they sign their lease, they're going to want to know what their insurance is going to cost them, so.
So they might come back to us at some point. Okay.
Are any of the potential tenants in a position now to start sourcing the insurance and finding out what they need?
I think once we have the lease agreement finalized and I can send them a copy and they know what we're requiring of them, they'll be able to go get those quotes. And so this is the first step.
Mr. Scott, are you available now?
Oh, shoot.
No.
He can hear us, but we still can't
But-
hear him.
For Commissioner Margraff's question under 4E,
Call him and then
if
he
you
can
look down at 10D, so that's maintenance and repair, it says the lessor, otherwise known as the authority, which would be us, to keep the lease premises in good working order and condition and in compliance with New Ulm City Code. And it spells out some things, but maintenance is one of those things that's there. So air conditioner technically would fall under us, under the maintenance agreement.
Mr. Scott, I think Heather's going to call you so that we'll have you that way. You get your questions answered?
Pretty much 10A kind of follows with 10D as well.
Yep.
There is nothing in there about damage by the lessee to the property specifically,
Let's see.
just if the property's damaged, but
I thought I saw something about,
I think A kind of covers that, lease operation maintenance, notify of such repairs, responsible for the repair of any damage to real estate comprising the lease premise at leasee's expense. So that's under 4A, so
okay,
anything
as long as
they
you're good
do.
with that.
Yep.
I got the nine is adjournment.
I don't have his number off the top of my head.
I think Heather's working on it.
I think we'll be okay.
Or we called him and put him by the mic?
Yeah.
Any other questions? And Mr. Scott, can you hear us still? Can you just let us know how you're feeling in general about the lease agreement here? Do you think it has, enough, I guess, or do you think it's a little too much for what we're doing? I don't know. I mean, I guess there's,
ASL, anybody?
oh, yes, yeah, I guess you guys still
I think
can't.
they're calling you.
Yeah. I hear a phone ringing.
Where is it?
10E.
Okay.
I only went to 9.
Yeah, it's look how the Westridge. This one.
We,
Click on these guys. The lease.
okay. And it looks like we'll be contacting Mr. Scott on the phone.
Up here next.
Okay.
T is going to try to get him his phone set up.
I think Tom's in there too, trying to call him too.
Oh, he's
Does he have his phone? Do you have your phone with you?
Oh, is he not in the office?
He's talking to us.
Hold the phone up.
I don't know if he's working from home. I don't know if his office
Robert
number is
Scott.
going to work.
Is not available to take your call.
Oh. Do you have your phone with you, Mr. Scott?
Can you put a different number in the chat?
Okay, we're calling, but it went to voicemail, so.
Put his cell in the chat. Probably called his office.
Number that you could put in the chat, I can give that to IT.
We can't find it either now.
No, I'm not all the way up to see what he says.
Just
Oh, he was on the phone with IT when you were calling. Okay. Oh, that's a different number. Okay.
okay. Thank you.
Steve, can you see the number in the chat?
Okay.
We got about in section 10.
And we're working.
We'll give you
on
a
it.
call in just a second.
Yep.
We go back to the insurance issue. I know, Les, you had talked about maybe lowering the rent
This is
fee.
Robert.
But weren't we saying that?
Hey, Robert.
There could be, after
Hi.
an audit, a refund of some of the workman's comp insurance premium? So it might not be a real cost to them?
Yeah, that's a good point too. All right, we have you on, Mr. Scott.
All right. Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and thanks for your patience as we got this sorted out.
So I guess I just kind of wanted your, 10,000 foot overview of the lease agreement and everything that's in here and, how we think that this will go. I don't know. Or anything that you think we should add or that's not necessary.
No, board members, I feel good about the lease the way we have it. I think a lot of work has gone into it. Obviously, I know the EDA has looked at this and considered it once previously, and we've had extensive conversations with staff and Mr. Firth on the insurance provisions. I feel we're in a good place. I don't think it's overkill or anything. I think you're doing something kind of novel here by having this kind of use within a city facility. And I think, as you go, if you encounter any problems that the lease doesn't address, we can always try and amend it to meet both parties' needs. But, as far as getting something in place that we think is going to cover the city and work for the tenants, I think we've got a good document here.
Okay.
I would also add, I was listening to the discussion and the specific questions, and I don't think there's a single provision in the lease that hasn't already been identified that I would have pointed you to. I think Chris and staff did a great job on that.
Thank you. And this lease agreement, our initial leases are 2-year agreements, correct?
Right.
Okay. And then at renewal, do we plan to have another 2-year?
I think it would go month to month after the initial 2 years, but we can.
I would do month to month until they sign a new lease, and if they want to sign a new lease, we'll give them the option to either do 1 or 2 years. I think would be equitable at that point.
Okay.
Well, hearing all this, I'm going to offer a motion then to approve the revised lease agreement with Westridge Place Pod Model Child Care Providers.
I'll second that.
Okay, we do have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? Those in favor signal by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion does carry. Item number 6.1, First Children's Finance Grant.
All right, before we move on to that, I just want to thank the city attorney and apologize for the technical difficulties. Robert, you probably don't have to stay on for the remainder of the meeting unless you are just so interested.
I'm sure you are.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your patience. Thanks for making this work.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Have a good day.
All right. You too. Thank you.
All right, President Betker and Commissioners, we actually received this grant from First Children's Finance last year. I just never brought it to the board as a resolution, so I thought now that we're getting our remaining $3,000 that I should do that. So this grant was received because we were recipients of the RCCIP, or the Rural Child Care Innovation Program, grant through First Children's Finance. So we'll be applying this toward Westridge Place. We received the initial 90% last June, and we're receiving the remaining $3,000, or we have received the remaining $3,000 now. Once our project is completed, I do need to send in a final report, and we have until the end of the year to do that, so that should be no problem.
I offer the resolution to accept the First Children's Finance Grant in the amount of $30,000.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? Director Briggle, please call the roll.
All right, Commissioner Black,
Yes.
Commissioner Berg,
Yes.
Commissioner Kalk,
Yes.
Commissioner Markgraf.
Yes.
Commissioner Schultz.
Yes.
Commissioner Henn.
Yes.
President Betker.
Yes, that motion does carry. Item number 6.2, Westridge Place donations.
I'll offer a resolution to accept the donations to Westwood Place for the period of June 23, and that was $100 from South Point Financial Credit Union and $250 from Broadway Chiropractic.
Second that.
Thank you. We do have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? Director Briggle, please call the roll.
Commissioner Black,
Yes.
Commissioner Berg,
Yes.
Commissioner Kalk,
Yes.
Commissioner Markgraf.
Yes.
Commissioner Schultz.
Yes.
Commissioner Henn.
Yes.
President Betker.
Yes, motion carries. Item number 7.1, Economic Development Activity Report for June 2023.
All right, you have the report in your packet. I just wanted to mention for the child care team, we are planning to have a booth at National Night Out. And we also have a film viewing event planned for August to show the Labor of Love film, which highlights the child care crisis. Under the Commercial Property Rehab Loan Program, note one loan closed in the amount of $21,450. And under the Small Business Loan Program, one loan closed in the amount of $10,000. And under the Small Business Incentive Grant Program, 2 grants were paid and 1 application was received. So the application that was received is on the waiting list because we have spent our $80,000 that we were given for the year. And then I also have Wendy Anderson here to give her second quarter report. So if you'd like to come up, Wendy, and state your name for the record.
Good morning. Wendy Anderson. As far as the report goes, we've had a great response. It seems like the work for the summer has doubled compared to the winter months. Thanks to Heather for all her reaching out to everybody, but also we see a lot of response from the bankers is happening, even coming to meetings with us. A lot of the grant applicants have been reaching out, working on business plans and finance plans too. Questions?
I have a couple of questions, more of a comment. It would be helpful to me. I'm a data person, so like having numbers of people met would be helpful to me for this, just so I can wrap my head around what's going on and happening.
I think you missed the last meeting we had the numbers, but
Okay.
I'll attach that again. Thank
Perfect.
you. Yep. Any other questions?
Not a question, but a comment. Thank you for making note of Heather's great work, and that is important. And
It really makes a
that,
difference.
absolutely, yeah.
Yep.
So, thank you for doing that. Thank you, Heather, for your work on this.
Thank you, but this is supposed to be Wendy's report of her activities.
Well, no, Heather, you're a big part of it, so, yep.
I guess have general question. So maybe like new companies thinking of coming to New Ulm, like I know that there's a lot of different kind of first directions that they go. Sometimes they call the chamber, sometimes they call the city. Have we been seeing kind of an increase at all in the amount of interest in our community? I know we've made some updates to the website and have the listing of available properties and things like that. I'm just curious as now that we've done some of these things in hopes of attracting more businesses, if we're seeing that that's coming to.
We see a lot of new businesses coming, and I think it comes from all the outreach, the lenders now knowing about pieces, but also the efforts that were put into the website, and that I think really helps. I still would like to see the demographics piece that we kind of talked about, because I had a couple chances to use that where I had to recreate. So, yeah.
And I think that's one of the questions Commissioner Markgraf had under your recommendations. She wanted to know what you meant by develop and provide easy access to local demographics. So you're asking us to add that to the website?
We talked about that, I think, at the last meeting, that was being worked on, and I see that it could be used quite often, so, yeah.
I know it's available in the property search tool, but I don't know that
So
we have it.
what Wendy is referring to, and we had talked about, was kind of putting together, whether it's a, for lack of a better term, a bookmark, essentially, little, not
Something
3x5, but
printable or
something printable that
downloadable.
has both
Yeah.
sides demographic information, demographics at a glance, so people you can just hand it out to people and they have that. If they request it
That
online,
and
it's easily accessible.
electronic, where we can include it in the business plan, so.
Are most of the businesses that you're talking to, are they smaller businesses or larger? Or a
All,
little bit of everything?
all sizes, a lot of small, mom and pop, single, but there's still some larger ones that are doing buildings, expansions, and things like that, so, yeah.
I know I've talked about this before, but like 10 years ago, there was a big push to try and bring in some manufacturing, and a lot of the companies said, we won't locate unless you have a 4-lane. And now we have a 4-lane.
Now we have a 4-lane.
I'm wondering,
Yep.
curious if any of those folks are banging on our door now?
Well,
or-
I think we should be banging on their doors.
Well, I agree.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Somewhere there's that list. I don't know who's got it, but
Well,
we kept track of it, I remember.
that'd be great to share it.
Yeah. It might be over at the chamber. I think the chamber might have
Okay.
worked on that project.
I'll reach out, yeah.
I do have an ad going in Connect Business Magazine. I believe it comes out in August, highlighting the 4-lane expansion, and it has a QR code to our property search tool to show them what's available.
Great.
Thank you, Ms. Hunt.
Do you have I guess what you'd call an established protocol that you use all the time with these people? I sometimes wonder, what do you talk about with these people?
Well, yesterday I was on the phone and email with a client that needed to set up their LLC, their EIN. So kind of it's from start to finish or anywhere in between. And it's just getting them established and knowing the steps, knowing if they need a license, helping them look through lease agreements. It's different for every client that comes in the door. Some of the banks are wanting to know, can they make the payments? So we work through the whole process of a financial plan, cash flow for the business, but that's also has a business plan attached to that. And some people, it's just working on their marketing plan. So it's protocol to their needs.
But could we see some of that information sometime? I'm curious about that.
I could have a private meeting with you.
Well, okay.
Because this is all confidential information until they've gotten their loan, opened their business, or I work with the ones for the grants too, but I'm happy to sit down with you and kind of show what we put together for different clients.
Well, maybe we should do
But
that
it has
sometime.
to stay confidential between us.
'Cause, I've been through all that stuff over many years.
Yeah.
So,
But, we have the lenders calling us now, and I have done business with a lot of lenders over the last 15 years. And they come to the meetings and they're excited that this service is there to help so that it doesn't land on them because they don't have the time to help them put a business plan together, help them put the cash flow plan together.
But do you, for example, do you have a kind of an established protocol to help somebody put together a business plan?
Like a template for them to follow, yes.
Do, okay.
Yes. I have a template for both the cash flow, finance, and for the business plan. It covers the basics, but we really work through each piece per what their business is.
Well, and I understand that every business is a little different,
Yeah.
but there are certain standardized things that any business has to do and have.
Absolutely. Yep. Yep.
So we could see those templates without breaking any confidentiality.
You sure could, but it's my proprietary too. So it has to stay between us. Yep. Yep.
My husband and I have met with Wendy before,
Yes.
and I appreciate very much the help that she gave us and just somebody to say, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? And, you know, somebody who's been there, done that, and can see everything that needs to happen, that's super helpful.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay.
I will look for a motion to,
Just one more piece for economic development activity. So potentially next month, and this will be food for thought for each of you commissioners, we potentially will have one, maybe two proposals for the EDA lots next to Broadway House. So potentially, if you want to sell, I would start kind of mulling that over for the three lots next to Broadway House. Two people very interested.
This is where the food trucks are operating out of.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's 3 lots next to Broadway House. The one directly next door is a vacant lot where a house used to be that was demoed years ago. The next one over has a 2-bedroom rental house that the EDA owns and rents out. And then the third lot is on the corner, and that's where the food trucks are. We also use that lot in the winter for our tenants to move their cars when we have to do snow removal in the parking lot. So if we lose those properties, I'm going to have to figure out how we're going to do snow removal in the parking lot because they can't park on the streets during a downtown snow emergency. So where do they go with their cars? That's a concern of mine, but we'll have to figure something out.
You know, that could be something as simple, and, you know, when we work with the developers that, hey, during snow emergencies, if they can park there for whatever, 2 hours, and then they'll have to move their cars. I mean, that's something you can write in as they develop, so.
good, sounds like we just keep moving on things. This is great.
I move to accept the Economic Development Activity Report for June 2023 activities.
Second?
We do have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? Those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion does carry. Item number 8.1, Newell Business Resource and Innovation Center report, a Newbrick report. Mr. Wessel is not here today, but he did submit a report.
Probably the largest thing in there that to note is their desire to put up a building, which was unveiled at their big meeting last month. Doesn't really say where. It kind of leaves that in the lurch. Somebody might be donating the land, but so I'll be curious to learn if that. We should know more next month, I would assume. But knowing that, I'll offer a motion to receive the Newbrick report for May and June 2023.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any additional discussion? I just want it noted, I know that Newbrick's doing a lot of work. They recently received the planning grant from the EDA for Region 9, and so that is to fund a feasibility study regarding a STEM and robotics lab here in New Ulm. They're also working with Corey, the Center on Rural Innovation. That's a group out of Vermont. I had a chance to meet the CEO, Mr. Dunn, of that organization a couple of months ago. I wasn't able to attend the recent meeting because I was traveling, but it looks like they're doing a lot of, I guess, good tech-based things. It's just something that we really need to think about because I know that, well, they're going to be coming back to us to request some more support from EDA. So I do think it's important to just stay up to date on what Newburgh is doing and answer or, bring questions up as they come. That's my comment.
You represent us on that board, right?
I do as an ex officio, but I was not being made aware of when the meetings were. So I just got notified of when the meetings are. So I will be now attending those meetings as well. But yes, just important to kind of keep a pulse on it, just to make sure that we're kind of, that we are working together. That's the point of this. So, yep. Okay, any additional discussion? All right, those in favor signal by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion does carry. With no additional business, this meeting is adjourned today.